Good afternoon, folks. I'm all sweaty and nasty. I've been outside trimming limbs and wanted to come in here and cool off. And while I was sitting here taking a break, I thought I'd take the opportunity to tell you about CD4. I said that wrong. Yeah, CD4 MCU steel. For lack of better terminology, you can basically think of it as a cast stainless steel. And that's not entirely accurate, but it's got the corrosion resistant properties of stainless steel and the ductile properties of cast steel. It's a very, very, very durable material. So Gorman-Rupp Pumps makes some of their Super T Series pumps in that CD4 MCU steel. I was working at that industrial facility, and we had a station that, because of the industrial processes, it saw pH swings from a 12 to a 2 with 3 or 4 times a day. You might go to that lift station and pull a pH sample and have a 2 pH, and then come back an hour later and pull a pH sample and have a 12 pH. Come back another hour later and it's back down to around a 2. It fluctuates all day long. And so trying to plan for that, like if I know a lift station is going to always have a 2 pH, well then you can add some caustic to it, balance out the pH. But that wasn't the case. It was all over the place. And so we had some T4 pumps in the next station that were standard cast iron pumps. And we put one of those pumps in. Now a Gorman-Rupp T4 at the time, this is a couple of years ago, at the time a Gorman-Rupp T4 was about a $4,000 pump. In cast steel. In CD4 MCU steel, it was about an $8,000 pump. So double the cost. However, if I'm looking at long term of my equipment and I've got to replace this pump with any regularity, the question becomes, how often do I have to replace it? And is the cost of replacing it cheaper than purchasing the upgraded pump? So in this one particular station with pHs of a 2 and a 12 all throughout the day, we had put a cast iron pump in place and we're doing an inspection on it, and it wasn't quite a year later. It was like 11 and a half months later. We pulled it out, pulled out the tail section, or the rotating assembly. The volute inside, the outside of the pump still looked like a brand new pump. It was basically, it's a year old. The paint was still in good shape. The inside of the pump, pieces were falling out of the pump. Pieces of volute, like chunks of steel about that big, were just breaking off in just pieces. It had just been acidized and rotted from the inside out. Now, at another station that was a lot older, there were some of the CD4 pumps. We go over there and pull one of those to inspect it. These pumps are 15 years old. And when you open it up, it still looked brand new inside. It still had the same 2 to 12 pH swing. But the inside of those pumps, you could still see the mill marks. It looked brand new, like it just come out of the factory on the inside of that pump. Now the outside was 15 years old. The paint was faded and peeling, but the body was just as solid as day one, and the internals looked brand new after 15 years. So of course, what's the next conversation you have? Well, I put in a $4,000 pump that lasted me 1 year, or I can buy an $8,000 pump that could last 10, 15, 20 years. Well, heck, after 2 years, that pump is paid for itself. So it only makes sense to replace those stainless steel or those steel pumps with the CD4 material. So we put CD4 material pumps in that station, and the last time I checked, or the last time I talked with the guys that are still running that plant, no problems, still running like brand new. Just interesting stuff when you look at maintaining your equipment and the difference between a cheaper piece of equipment and a more expensive piece of equipment. And sometimes you don't need the more expensive piece of equipment. There's all kind of bells and whistles that don't make any sense. We just don't use that functionality, so why would we spend the money on it? Or we have this lift station and the pH is steady as a rock. It's always at a 7. Well, that's neutral. It's not going to hurt the pump. You can put those steel pumps there and they may run forever. But with those high pH swings, it totally made sense to spend the money and pay double to have a pump last me 10 or 15 times longer. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter. God bless y'all. I love you. Have a good day, and don't forget, like and subscribe.